Ozi v'zimrat Yah v'yehi li Yeshua. 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 Good morning, Boker Tov. It is good to be back with you this morning for a little learning together, a little teaching, a little time spent together. Today is Wednesday, so that means we have some wisdom to share. And so we're here and we will learn together. Rabbi Jay is having shoulder replacement surgery today. So after this, I'll be going to pick him up and bring him to the hospital, and God willing, all will be great, and he'll be on this road to recovery, which I think is a little longer than maybe he would like it to be, but we got to get on the train before we can reach the destination. So we will be doing that. His surgery is set for 12:45. So if you're a prayer person, a little bit extra prayers for healing, and of course that the surgeon and team and all of the things should line up correctly so that he will hopefully in the end be pain-free and have some mobility, which will be wonderful. And I guess, Janaba, he can go back to playing the harmonium. So I know that he's looking forward to that, and to being able to pick up the kids without extreme pain, or without them climbing up first and then him kind of holding them without lifting his shoulder. And so we pray that that all goes well. And in the meantime, you're going to see a lot of me. So I hope that is also okay and a blessing for all of you. So we are in this week's Parsha, in the week of Korach. And so there's a lot of, this portion is multifaceted, and there's a lot of things that come with it. And so often when people think about this Parsha, it could be misunderstood. At first glance, it's about rebellion, but like as you sit longer with it or you dive deeper into it, it's something deeper, which is the difference between a disagreement that serves a higher purpose and a disagreement that serves the ego. So let's jump in, because that's what we do, and ask ourselves, or try to uncover what Korach was really seeking. The difference between a purpose and recognition. One of the reasons that this Parsha continues to challenge us is that Korach doesn't begin with an obviously bad argument. In fact, he says something that sounds true, remarkably true. He approaches Moses and Aaron and he declares, the entire community is holy, every one of them, and God is among them. why then do you raise yourself above the congregation? So at first glance, it's hard to disagree. After all, hadn't the people stood together, like all of them at Sinai? Hadn't every person heard God's voice in their own way? Wasn't holiness meant to belong to everyone? And the answer, of course, is yes. And Korach is absolutely right about it, which raises the question, if Korach's argument contains truth, then why does it end in a disaster? So the rabbis for centuries suggest that the problem wasn't the words themselves. The issue was with where the words came from. What's underneath them? Korach speaks the language of equality. Great. But his actions revealed something else. He isn't simply seeking a more just community. He is seeking a different place for himself within it. And that distinction matters because there's a difference between wanting to serve a cause and wanting to be the center of it. So the Torah invites us to ask, was Korach trying to lift up others, or was he upset that someone else had been lifted and it wasn't him? That's a much harder question, because if we're honest, most of us have experienced some version of this. We've all had moments when someone else received recognition, someone else got an opportunity, someone else was chosen, someone else was thanked, and a little voice inside us whispers, hey, what about me? That's a very human voice. Korach's mistake isn't that he had that feeling. His mistake is that he allowed that feeling to be his compass. Instead of asking, how can I contribute? He asks, why aren't I the one that's leading? Instead of focusing on purpose, he becomes focused on position. And once that happens, something shifts. The conversation is no longer about serving the community. It's about serving the self. One of the hallmarks of true leadership in the Torah is humility. Not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Not thinking less of yourself, not pushing yourself down, but taking the ego and the swollen head and reducing it. Thinking about the greater picture rather than yourself in the greater picture, or as yourself is the picture. When Moses first encounters the burning bush, he doesn't seek leadership. He resists it again and again. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not cut out for it. I don't want to be part of it. But why? Because Moses understands something Korach does not. That leadership isn't a prize, it's a responsibility. And so the Torah consistently teaches that the healthiest leaders are not those that seek power, rather those that seek purpose. And perhaps that's the enduring lesson of Korach, because this story isn't really about ancient politics. It's about a question that every one of us faces. And what is that question? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I trying to make a difference, or am I trying to be noticed? Am I serving the work, or am I seeking the recognition of doing the work? And these questions aren't always easy. And the answers are rarely black and white, rarely pure, because most of us live somewhere in the middle. But Korach reminds us that when recognition becomes more important than the purpose, we're losing our footing. Humility is not denying. Humility is not denying our gifts. It's remembering what the gifts are for our talents, our influence, our leadership, our success. And none of them exist solely for us. They exist to help us contribute to something larger than ourselves. So, of course, Wisdom Wednesday always comes with, other days too do, that also do, but always comes with a question. how does this relate to us in our lives? And so the reflection part of this is, where in your life, where in our lives are we being called to focus less on the recognition and more on the purpose? What would change if we measured success not by how much attention we're receiving, but how much good we're able to do? Korach teaches us that even a true message can become distorted when it's driven by our ego. Moses teaches us that leadership begins not with status, but with service. Every one of us knows what it feels like to wonder, what about me? The Torah doesn't shame that feeling. It just simply asks us not to let it drive the bus. So, beloved friends, may we have the wisdom to know the difference. May we celebrate the gifts we give and we have without needing them to place us above another. May we always remember that our greatest purpose is not to stand the center of attention, but to help bring light and dignity and holiness to the great community, which is the people around us. Thank you for joining me this morning, Suze and Geneva. No one else has checked in yet, but I'm sure their number says you're here, and I'm sure others will watch at other times. Let us continue to learn from one another together in true community. Let us find our place in the world, not in the spotlight, but in spotlighting that which is greater purpose and greater fulfillment with dignity and love for all. We are one human family, one heart of abundant love. We love you. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9:30, and we will continue to learn together. And in the meantime, we will lift up Rabbi Jay as he prepares for surgery, and God willing, we'll have the healing that he so looks forward to, and he'll be back in the saddle before we know it. Thank you for being here. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Od Avinu Chai. Have a great day, everybody.